The following message is from King's Church 1066, based in Hastings, Bexhill and the surrounding area. For more information, head to our website, kings1066.org.
Right, so look to the person to the left or to your right. One of you say knock knock. The other one of you say who's there. The first person says Twitter. The next person says, and then you say, I didn't know you were an owl. There you go. Okay, let's move on. Right, okay, so it's good to see you this morning. And my name's Paul, one of the pastors here, Can I just say as well, if you're a Christian here and you're one of those people that feels slightly distant from God, all right, can I just say, don't panic. It's all right. It's okay. Most of us in our Christian walks and lives at different points feel quite distant from God and wonder where he is. Can I just assure you that he's gone nowhere? He's in exactly the same place as he always has been. Can I just assure you that you're in the same place? And it might not be anything that you've done wrong. It's probably not. You might just have some stuff going on. Or God might just wanting you to push in a bit deeper and just ask a bit more for his presence. It's all right. It just seems to be one of those fairly normal things in the Christian walk where sometimes we just feel a million miles away from God or he feels a million miles away from us. And I think it's all right to voice it, but don't panic. It's all right. He ain't gone anywhere. Okay, that's one of the things we're going to look at today as we talk through some stuff, as well as tell some really bad jokes. Okay, so maps. Anyone know what Google Maps are? Anyone use Google Maps? Anyone seen Google Maps driving around your streets? Okay, can you put the first picture up? I'm going to show you some pictures of actual things that you will find on Google Maps. Someone found it funny to dress as a horse. Okay, you will find this in America somewhere. That is actually a Google Map picture, all right? Someone dressed as a horse sat next to a flamingo, which is a bit weird. Next. What's wrong with that one? Google Maps are breaking the law. They're in a 30-mile-an-hour zone, and the speed limit says you are going 37 miles an hour. You will find that on Google Maps. Next one. Here is another one. Okay. Honestly, these are genuinely on there. There are people that dress up hoping that Google drive past and end up on their maps. There's a bloke with a fake mannequin in a fake spa. Next. This is the best one. I don't know where it is. I think it's India or Thailand. Where is that? Yeah, it says that. All I know, it's not Basildon. It's not Basildon in Essex. There are two guys driving around on a bike with a dentist chair on the back. So if you ever need any dentistry work done at the last minute, that is on Google Maps. And next one. Is there any more? Okay. A man on a penny farthing pulling his toy penguin along. You will find these all on Google Maps if you search hard. Is that it? Is that all I've got? That's me done. I hope you enjoyed my preach. I'm going to sit down. So, whether you know it or not, most of us have a map, okay? We have a map of the world. We have a viewpoint. Because of how we've been brought up, because of all our influences, our surroundings and all that kind of stuff, each and every one of us have a map of the world. You are on your own map. No one else is on your map. And how your map looks is how you view everything around you. Another word for that is your frame of reference. This is your frame of reference that when you look at situations, when you look at the world around you, you read it in only the way that you can read it. And it will be different to most other people. Does that make sense? Did you like my introduction to the idea of maps? It took me all of 2 minutes to come up with that. So for many of us, as life goes on, at some point on your map, God will be introduced. God will be introduced onto your map. You start getting ideas of who might God be. You might get a curiosity. Further along, depends on how far down the line you are on your map, with God on your map, you might decide to become a Christian. You might invite God into your life personally, into your world, and then that begins to shape a few things. Here's one of the problems, okay? And here's an idea I'd like to offer you to consider. that might be the wrong way round, where we start to invite God into our world and we start to think that God looks like the way we think he looks from our frame of reference. So our frame of reference has started. Our map has started. We begin to get an idea. This is what the world looks like. This is what it means. Later on, the idea of God comes onto our map. We kind of think, okay, so that might mean that God looks like this and he looks like this and it looks like that. But can I offer the idea that that's the wrong way round? Because God existed before we did. God was there ever before you were thought about. The starting point is not us and our map. The starting point always will be God. Always will be God. And that is one of the most challenging, influential statements as a Christian you can possibly hear, because what that means is you have to start viewing things from God's angle and not yours, because he was here first. And if Jesus is Lord and God is God, you're not and I'm not. And that means there's someone else's angle, someone else's perspective, someone else's map that comes before our map and our frame of reference. And it's not that God has to line up with what you think or our way of viewing the world. It's that there's not one person in this room that does not have to line up with what God thinks, with God's plan and idea and his map and his viewpoint. Maps are incredibly important to us. I'm not undoing anything of how we view the world. We've all got it and they are really important. All I'm asking us to consider is what areas of our life do we have to line up with God and him not lining up with us? Because that's what makes him God and you not. That's what makes him God and me not. What we're going to look at today is quite possibly one of the most exciting, wonderful, fascinating, mind-blowing, head-doing things that you can possibly get your head around. We're going to talk about how God is infinite. And as much as we try to put his frame of reference onto ours with this regard, you are never going to fully get it. You are not going to get it. You might think you understand it fully. You might think, I've got this one sewn up. You haven't. No one has. We're going to look at how God is infinite. I'm going to be reading a lot from my notes, all right, because I just want to get this right. So to try and put this idea into our frame of reference or map of how we view the world, God will not fit your view of the world, and neither should he. Neither should he. This is an attribute of God which does our head in because it's way above our experience. We have not experienced what it means to be infinite. The only close to infinite I get is listening to one of Dan Glover's music playlists. It seems to go on forever and ever and ever and never end. Honestly, it's one of the most longest things you have ever heard. This idea of infinite is way out of our time. Understanding. It's way out of our space. Understanding. You will not get your head around it because there is not one bit of it that we have experienced. We have not experienced some of the things that we're going to talk about. It's a whole nother frame of reference or map that only God himself knows. And Isaiah 55, verse 8 to 9, I was going to bring it earlier actually, says this. It says that God's thoughts and ways are not your thoughts and ways, and they're not my thoughts and ways. They are far greater, and they're far greater to the point of mystery. You have to be comfortable with mystery if you believe in God. You have to be. The thing is, do you trust that mystery? And the only way you trust that mystery is knowing that God is a God of love. And if there's mystery about him, you know that that can be mystery because you can kind of trust him with it. You have to let go of the fact that you are fully in control when you know everything, because you don't. Only God does. Only God does. There are sides to God that are a mystery, and we have to be all right with that. He's God and we're not. Is that all right? Okay. What's your idea of infinite? Okay, normally infinite comes in two kind of ways or thoughts or kind of ideas. The first one is time, which I've mentioned about, and the second one is space. The thought of infinite time, I will be honest, freaks the life out of me. It freaks the life out of me, and I'll be really honest. Paul's going to tell me off later for saying this, but I'm going to say it now. I didn't run it past him. There are points and times where some people say, the church service worship was really great, and one day eternity is going to be like that. I'm thinking, no. No. There's only so many times I can sing that song, and please let heaven be different styles of worship. If it looks like Glastonbury, you'll find me at the alternative one. I'm hoping and praying that Robert Smith from The Cure becomes a Christian because I want him to be leading my worship for the rest of eternity. Then I will be happy. I struggle for an hour and a half in the Oak Room at a prayer meeting sometimes, praying for eternity. I'm going to be like, I don't know what to do with this. How am I going to cope with endless moments of the same thing over and over and over again? And our worship's good, Janelle, guys. You do a wonderful job. But I would rather, I don't know, you know what I like, The Cure, someone that, Anyway, I'm going to stop there, Paul. If that's what eternity looks like, it freaks me out. It's so different to my idea of what time is, what it means. This idea of space. God is infinite in space. He is endless. God is bigger than our world. God is bigger than our universe. God is outside of our universe. Someone tell me where that is. Because it's the only sticking point of my talk. What exists outside of the universe? I'll tell you what exists outside of the universe. God. God. If you need a breathing space or a quiet room to sit and reflect for any moment or period of time during this talk, then please do. But this is purposeful and there's a reason for it. Okay, let's look at God being eternal in time. Time started the moment the universe came into being. That's when it started. The moment the universe came into being and started, time started. Time is this force. It's a force of forward momentum of time and moments and space. It keeps going and it keeps going and it keeps on going. We live in time, which is dictated to us by a forward motion of events, unless you're Dr. Emmett Brown and you have a DeLorean. You cannot go back in time. You can't go and see Biff and his mates. If you don't know what I'm talking about, watch Back to the Future. It's a time travel film. It doesn't work like that. Ever seen how those old-fashioned cartoons are made? If you're born in the 1970s or earlier, we've got Tom and Jerry, and it's a frame at a time. A frame at a time. It's like life. A frame at a time. Going forward, going forward, going forward. We're dictated to by time. It's a succession of moments. It affects our age. It limits us. It defines moments in history, and it plays a significant part in the structure of the universe. That's time. That thing you've got on your wrist, what time is it? 11:04. That is one of the most important elements, or structural elements in the universe that you live in. You can't do nothing with it. And when it comes to God, we like to say, in the beginning, God. And even that, it places him on our frame of reference. We like to think in the beginning was God. We place him in a moment of time. Straight away, it's fascinating when you think of the language we use. In the beginning, God, placing him in our time. Our brains can cope with the idea that God has existed as long as it's always within our time frame. As always as it's in our structure and our experience, an idea of time, because it's on our map. Even when we say God was there right at the start, we've placed him in time. You place him in time. I've always thought of eternity being an everlasting succession of moments, again, which kind of freaks me out. But God doesn't solely exist in time. God does not exist in your idea and my experience and your experience and the universe's experience. God does not solely exist there. Okay? He exists outside of time, where there's no succession of moments, because eternity isn't a succession of moments which goes on forever. Time, as we understand it, does not exist in eternity. It does not. This means that time doesn't limit God. Time has no effect on God. God never learns new things, and God never forgets old things. This process of time doesn't exist in eternity. Psalm 90, verse 2, before the mountains were born, or you brought forth the whole earth, from everlasting to everlasting, you are God. Everlasting doesn't mean at the beginning and at the end. It's outside of that. Job 36:26. How great is our God, beyond our understanding. The number of his years is past finding out. You're not going to get it. These guys who wrote the Bible years ago didn't get it. Exodus 3:14. God says to Moses, let the room go quiet a minute. God says to Moses, I am who I am. That means before everything was made, even time, which began at the moment God himself brought the universe into being, before that, God. 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 All the past histories, God views in pure clarity as if it's just happened. I'll let that sit with you for a minute. God experiences of time isn't just patient endurance through eras and eras and eras and waiting for this specific moment where it jumps in. It's not his experience of time. His experience of time is totally different to ours, totally other than, and you're not going to get it, and you're not going to understand it. God created time when he created the universe, when it all kicked off. So did time as we knew it. And before this moment, before the very first atom came into being, God existed in eternity. Let me read Galatians 4, verse 4-5. Is that all right? Do you understand that? Yeah, right. Let me hopefully put something into our frame of reference. Galatians 4, verse 4-5. But when the set time had fully come, God sent his son, born of a woman, born under the law, that we might receive adoption to sonship because you are his sons. God sent the spirit of his son into our hearts, the spirit who calls out, Abba, Father. And what that means is the God who is outside of our time, in eternity, totally other than, has chosen to enter our time and act for redemption. The God that is totally other than, totally different to, has chosen to enter into our idea of this forward motion of events and set a plan, set a structure, and gets involved and gets his feet dirty in our time. And the Bible is full of moments. It's a whole narrative of a God who existed out of time and chose to enter into our idea of time. And one of the biggest purposes is redemption. Why? Because he loves the likes of you and me. We have a God who lives outside of time, but enters in. The Bible recounts of moments where God has acted in time, his plan being worked out within our experience and concept of time. Our experience of God, our understanding of God, even us knowing God, all comes from the fact that God himself has chosen to enter into our time and let us know he's there. That is the only way we've got an idea of God. Otherwise, we would not have a clue. Our God is not constrained by, affected by, dominated by time and its limits. He is sovereign over time as its creator. He's not just in control a bit or 99.9%. He is in control and sovereign 100% because he created time. He is sovereign over time. He views it differently to you. He sees it differently to you, but he has entered into it. We're going to stop there. We're going to look at something a bit easier. How long have we got? Let's look at something a bit easier. Let's look at the fact that God is unlimited with regards to space. Can we show the picture? This helps us get an idea of who God is. This is on the Sistine Chapel. Who did this? Was it Michelangelo? Michelangelo. I think it's the creation of man, creation of Adam. Here's God with a big white beard. That helps you know that he's wise. And for some reason, he's dressed like he's going to a spa for the day. I don't know why. For some reason, artists in history have tried to put God in their frame of reference. This is what God looks like. And I cannot get away from the fact that I still think this kind of art has an influence on us today. It influences our thinking of what God is like. It influences your speaking. I think it's probably on most of our frame of reference without us fully realising and knowing, but I don't really want to freak us out at that point. This art has an influence on who we are today. God does not look like that. You cannot personify God. The only way you can personify God is looking at Jesus Christ. And he don't look like that. Okay? God is omnipresent, but we like to put him in human form because we could have a chat with him and really get to know him. Hear me when I say this. We like to put him on human form so we can call him daddy and father. But he's bigger than that. The Bible says we can approach him like that. But do not forget he is not like that. Do not forget this is God that we come to. And don't take it for granted and don't be disrespectful. We come in awe as well as our Father. Okay? We need to remember that. Otherwise, it puts God on our level, and he's not. This artwork helps us get an idea and put him into our frame of reference. Let me read Jeremiah 23, verse 23 to 24. Am I only the God nearby, declares the Lord? Am I not far away? Who can hide in secret places that I cannot see them, declares the Lord? Do I not fill heaven and earth, declares the Lord? 1 Kings 8:27. But will God really dwell on earth? The heavens, even the highest heavens, cannot contain you. How much less this temple I have built? The fact is that God is not equivalent to anything else in creation. The fact is that God is present everywhere. He is unlimited with regards to space, meaning he cannot be confined to it. God doesn't have to squeeze into the universe because he made it. God didn't exist at the start of the universe. Before the universe, I am. God exists outside of our space. I don't know where that is. I can't tell you what that looks like. If you find a way of measuring that, let me know. I like to know the measurements of certain things and okay, I can personify that. I can see that physically. You're not going to get your head around it. God lives outside of our concept of space. He is present in the deepest ocean. He is present to the highest point on the sky and beyond. That's all physical. He is present in heaven and he is present in hell. God is present in different ways and in different places. Wayne Grudem explains that God is present, firstly, to punish. Amos 9, verse 1 to 4. This is the side we don't like. but we can't disregard it. Amos 9, 1-4 says this: I saw the Lord standing by the altar, and he said, strike the tops of the pillars so that the thresholds shake. Bring them down on the heads of all the people. Those who are left I will kill with the sword. No one will get away. No one will escape. Though they dig down to the depths below, from there my hand will take them. Though they climb up to the heavens above, from there I will bring them down. Though they hide themselves on the top of Carmel, there I will hunt them down, I will seize them. And though they hide from my eyes at the bottom of the sea, there will I command the serpent to bite them. Though they are driven into exile by their enemies, there I will command the sword to slay them. God is present to punish. We cannot forget this side of the Almighty. And when I say Almighty, he is. He's very other than us. He was before us. God is present everywhere. Colossians 1:17. God is present to sustain. Where's 17? He is before all things, and in him all things hold together. God is the sustainer of everything. He is present to uphold. He is present to keep it all going. The grass is green. Why? Because God said, and he keeps it that way. God is present, very present, to sustain everything. And then the last one, you'll like this one. Bit more palatable. Psalm 16, verse 11. I make known to you the path of life, says God. This is the same God we're talking about, the one who punishes, the one who sustains. This is the God who makes the path of life known to us. You will fill me with joy in your presence and with eternal pleasures at your right hand. The beautiful thing is God is here to punish, present to punish. God is present to sustain. But the Bible speaks mostly and mainly about God being present to bless, God being present to love, God being present to care, God being present to bring hope, God being present to bring you a future. They are all wrapped up equally in God. Not one more than the other. They work in perfect unity. This is God who exists out of our time and out of our concept of space. So God is omnipresent, but God chose to act in space. I'm going to speed up. This is from the Message, John 1, verse 1-5. God was first. Jesus was first. The Word was first. The Word present to God. God present to the Word. The Word was God in readiness for God from day one. Everything was created through him. Nothing, not one thing, came into being without him. What came into existence was life, and the life was light to live by. The life blazed out of darkness. The darkness couldn't put it out. The Word became flesh. The Word became blood, and the Word moved into the neighborhood. We saw the Word, the glory with our own eyes, the one of a kind of glory, like Father, like Son, generous inside and out, true from start to finish. Colossians 1:15 says Jesus is the image of the invisible God. God himself invaded our space in the form of Jesus Christ to walk on this planet to bring you redemption. The God that was out of our time and out of our space, entered into our time, entered into our space, got involved. It's got this massive story unfolding, this narrative, to the point where he became a baby, born of a woman, walked the planet like you and me, fully God, fully man, and he was present. And he moved into the neighborhood so that we could be right with God himself. This is Jesus, fully God, but became fully man. This is Jesus who was there before time, lived in eternity, before space. Whatever that might have looked like, was there when all that was made, and chose to enter our physical space here. God himself became one of us to reconcile us back to God. God broke into our time and space and took on human form. This massive God has the ability to be big, but become so small. Equally. God has the ability to outpour wrath here and blessing here, all at the same time. All at the same time, equally. God is so big, yet can be so small. God is infinite, but feels totally at home with humanity. God is holy enough to consume sinners in wrath and tender enough to envelop in us. Develop us in ending delight. This is the God who we talk about every week. This is the God that you know, and he knows you. Only possible through Jesus Christ. Just to drop that in. I'm going to finish off because I've gone over time, and we're going to show a video, and I might just end it on this video. You've seen it before. It's by a guy called Glenn Scrivener, and he takes this big concept of the world and God and explains why Jesus came. Hold into your mind this idea, the infinite God. And then listen to this, and I'm just going to hand over to Paul because I've got to go to Bexhill. But if you don't know Jesus, listen to this. This isn't some Sunday by Sunday nice fun thing for us to do. This is a God who is real and exists out of time and is bigger than you and is bigger than me, but he's sent a message, and his message is Jesus Christ, and this is what we need to hear to be right with this God. Because punishment does exist equally as love and grace. And this is the love and grace expressed for us to be right with God. Let's go, play the video.
In the beginning, there was light and life and love. There was a Father loving his Son in the joy of the Holy Spirit, and everything has come from light and life and love. And out of this has come a world that is destined to share in light and life and love. But you know that this world is not like that. I know this world is not like that. I look around and I see darkness and death and disconnection. Where's that come from? Well, we've turned from the light, and when you turn from the light, where else do you go but darkness? And when you turn from love, where else do you go but disconnection? When you turn from life, where else do you go but death? So this is the kind of world we live in. But what does love do? When love sees the beloved in trouble, love says, your pit will be my pit, your plight will be my plight, your debts will be my debts, your darkness will be my darkness, your death will be my death. So who is Jesus? Jesus is love come down. The Son of the Father comes and becomes our brother, to be with us in the darkness, to take that darkness on himself on the cross, to take that disconnection on himself, to even to take that death that we all deserve for turning from God, took that on himself on the cross, plunged it down into the hell that it deserves, and he rose up again to light and life and love, and he says, you in the darkness, do you want my light? You in death, do you want my life? You in disconnection, do you want my love? And anyone who simply says yes to Jesus, we get Jesus in our life. We get his Father as our Father. We get his Spirit as our Spirit. We get his future as our future. It's for free and it's forever. So do you want Jesus?